Hello, good evening. Assalamu alaikum. Hola. And I hope you are having a great time. We understand that this is a COVID-19 situation and still the journey must continue. And today, in our journey of Game Changer series of CHPA, we'll be talking today a very, very significant part of analytics in HR. And this pertains to the return on investment with a specific reference to the employee lifecycle management. Now, we have a panel of speakers, and today Abhijit is going to moderate today's discussion, and me and Rajeshri will be going to pitch in to give you a glimpse about how you can use analytics at the various stages of employee life cycle. And Abhijit, we will throw some questions to Abhijit from the point of view of analytics expert, that how he can recommend certain solution for each stage of employee life cycle management. So let me again introduce today with our esteemed speaker. We have got Rajeshri Charlotte FCIPD. She is the HR director, the head of HR for two of the very notable business of Landmark Group. And we have Abhijit, you know it well. He's a course director of Certified HR Strategy and Planning Analytics Certification Program, which is accredited from the Knowledge and Human Development Authority, the government of UAE, and it is also accredited from the HRCI, Human Resource Certification Institute, and you get a total of 65 course credits. That means if you do just one course, you can certify for next 3 years for your entire certification, be it SPHRI, PHRI, GPHR, or any other certification or APHRI of HRCN. So, Abhijit, you are the host today.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. And I would definitely like you to wear the hat of your old HR head in reputed companies like Himal, Dubal, Etisalat, etc. And Chippy. We are trying to fill in for absence of one of the speakers, so we'll need some support from you. So, why the topic employee lifecycle management is in discussion today, and what is the relevance of employee lifecycle management in CHPA course is the topic of discussion today. We will begin by understanding an employee lifecycle management from a traditional perspective, and who better than explaining us ELM than Rajeshri, who has been heading HR for various organizations. And then we can explore that what are the reasons why we are discussing ELM as a renewed point of interest today. Rajeshri, why don't you take us through ELM?
Sure, Biji. So obviously, employee lifecycle management is something that every HR department prioritizes. It is at the realm and at the top-notch, status quo for any human resources professional in any of the HR function and department, be it small-scale organization or large-scale organization. This is basically the process that focuses on the nurturing and developing of a company's most critical asset, its people. It encompasses different stages. As we all know, we have various stages which are, differentiated into 6 categories, starting from an employee's recruitment, which is talent acquisition, attracting the right talent in the organization, bringing in and completing a selection procedure, which is end to end recruitment procedure. The next stage, which is onboarding, which is extremely critical, where an employee, as per top organizations like Google, has mentioned that onboarding plays another critical role in any employee lifecycle management stage, because this is the stage where a new joiner makes a decision about a long stay in the organization between 1st to 6 months of the probationary period. Next comes the the development stage of an employee, which is where an organization decides to invest in a talent to develop and hone and design an entire career path or succession planning for an employee. Then we move on basis of performance management, etc., about retention. Now retaining top talent in the organization has become extremely critical in today's time and has always been. Attrition rate measurements, retention of top tier employees, etc., falls as the fifth stage in employee life cycle management. And then comes the separation, which is the exit formalities, where an employee completes an entire tenure or his or her career in an organization. And this is a typical employee life cycle, which I've just mentioned. And it has these 6 stages. So, yes.
Absolutely right, Shrey. And uh, one of the uh, one of the articles I was reading yesterday was talking something about employee value proposition, very similar to employee lifecycle management, but the whole proposition was around the employee benefits. So how an organization ensures a good experience for the employee during his stay in the organization, which would include, how do you build up his work environment, how do you manage his work-life balance, etc. Now, and the difference was that here we are putting the employee in the center of the activity. However, today's scenario is a little different. The organizations want us to put in the center the purpose of the employee's existence. Now, whenever I put the purpose of employee's existence, I still don't neglect the employee value proposition, but my perspective of handling the employee is through the purpose for which he has been recruited. If you go on to the next slide, Rashi, you'll see that there are three key. Uh, the next slide. I think this is the third slide. There's one more slide, Sandeep. Yeah. So you'll see there are three key changes that is happening in the market. One is the evolution of the organization and business dynamics, and what I call the DNA is changing. So the competition has increased, the business is more competitive, even the employees have changed, and this puts a pressure on most of us because for the first time we see that 4 generations of employees are working together. So the generation X is still working, millennials and generation Y have joined in, and we are still not done with uh, uh, the baby boomers. So the last phase of the baby boomers are still nearing their retirement, but they're still inside the organization. And to top it all, the Gen X and the millennials themselves have so much variety of people within the organization that a single strategy may not work for all of them. The second thing is there is a need for an integrated HR approach. So earlier, what used to be done was it was sequential in nature. So a part of the year we were focusing on recruitment, a part of the year we were focusing on attrition. Uh, Nowadays, it is overlapping. So you really cannot figure out whether this period of the year we focus on attrition or management of the employees or recruitment, because all are happening together. And the third is definitely as a the employee is being seen as a resource now, a strategic resource. And whenever we see say there is a strategic resource, the term ROI comes into play. And I would actually like Sandeep to enlighten us on the times he was heading HR in places like Imal and Etisalat. That what kind of change have you seen in the marketplace when you see HR as a function today?
Thanks, Abhijit, and for asking me this question. This is very interesting topic today, the employee lifecycle management, ELM we call. And I've seen Asia, I've seen Middle East, I've seen Europe, and how they had transformed over last 10 years. The pace of transformation in HR has been huge in last 10 years, 10 to 15 years, I'll say. But the earlier concept of, the cradle to the grave, the people entering the job as junior management or at the entry level and exiting at the pension level, the people, that categories is like my father, and other guys, and they have not seen, second job. For them, their job was a life. I've seen him going early morning, taking the, his bus, the vehicle, and then typically coming in the evening. And for them, there was nothing concept of like employee lifecycle management, because that was the way of life. But due to the sudden demand of labor market, the change in the dynamics of people's psychology, the changes in the expectations of the people, and a lot of competition. We had very few multinational companies that time, right? And we had some very, very, you can count them on your finger, couple of the government, semi-government, and, you can have, a couple of only, the private sector industry. And now you see the condition now, we have not heard entrepreneurship before this word. In the last 15 years, the first generation entrepreneurs, okay, and the second generation entrepreneur who have pushed their organization to the next realm altogether. There's a huge spurt, huge growth and opportunity. And when you see a growth and then it gets supported with the demand supply of the labor, then you see the dynamics emerging. And that's how, the concept of the employee life cycle came. Otherwise, it used to be and most of the companies in Asia, there used to be a union leadership. In the schools and the management, you are taught about the labor laws. There was no concept of HR. HR came quite at late, 15 years before. And in some part of the Middle East here, I have seen, when I was in HR director, Dr. Sulaiman Habib, I have seen just two functions, just two functions. One was the personnel, okay, and another was recruitment. That's it. There was no function called HR, human resources. And we went with a proposal to the management to say that, we need to make a development plan of the people, retention plan strategy. They say, no need. So why do we need this? If we develop people, tomorrow they're going to get skilled and tomorrow they're going to run away from here. They're going to get, more skilled and they're going to get the better opportunity. And that reminds me of, the famous saying of, one CEO and one CFO, joking together, and the live talk. And CFO says, why to invest these people? They eventually will run away with their money. Then the CEO says, what if the guys, they stay long in our company? Do you going to handle the losses they're going to incur? So the concept has changed enormously in last 15 years. And in Middle East here, you have seen typically in UAE that has been taking a lead in the transformation of the HR. And the speed has got so fast that now the entire Saudi Arabia has got engulfed into this transformation exercise. And the kind of employee lifecycle management we see in Saudi Arabia is almost as good as UAE or even better now in some of the companies. And likewise, if you go to Oman and if you go to Bahrain, or if you go to in Asia, or if you go to in Europe, you will see that more and more emphasis is being given on the employee lifecycle management, the entire one, okay, entire lifecycle management, and the employee value proposition has grown phenomenally now. And with the advent of this analytics, which is apt topic for today, to measure the the impact of HR initiative on each cycle of ELM, you know, the concept of ROI has caught like a wildfire now, because HR typically have been always were number shy, and they were, if you say the business number, they say, no, I'm going to, or even the CEO, they say, why you bring the HR here? Let the HR manage the people, right? Let them manage, their grievances and all. But the things have changed dramatically. The HR, with their new skill of analytics, they have been able to capitalize on people performance, people productivity. Okay, starting from your attraction, the brand, to attract the right kind of a people through their initiative called employee branding platforms, and then initiatives, and then inviting them, their best fit people to the organization, and then making them part of the growth and measuring their productivity. Like this, in this the diagram, which typically says that attraction, then recruitment, and then onboarding, developing them, retaining them, separation. But this is becoming more complex now, and ROI concept is becoming more and more significant, because now each dollar spent on employee, either learning and development, or the talent management, or a succession plan, or creating a kind of an environment which employee feels safe, engaged, happy, so that they are more productive. They feel that this is their organization, and they go extra mile at the workplace. Each dollar spent, which has been authorized by the management wants the accountability of it. They want to see that each dollar which you spend on an organization delivers some X amount of value. So now the ROI concept has become more and more significant now, and because the HR people have the pulse of employees, and they have the financial strength, the capability of analytics, I feel that now they are in a much better position to add value to each employee life cycle stages. Yeah, Abhijit.
Thank you so much. Actually, do you feel there has been a change? And I'm opening this to both of you. Do you feel there has been a change in the KPIs that used to exist for HR department then and now? And Rajshri has grown through the ranks, so I would love to hear from her.
Definitely, Abhijit. So I would say earlier, where the focus on human resources leadership KPIs used to be around processes and policies, and revamping and restructuring organizational infrastructure of people. Now that percentage, which was earlier, carrying higher weightage, has moved towards straightforward cost saving KPI and direct impact on people cost, measured on revenue, uh, versus revenue of the business. And that percentage of KPI is not less than 40% of the total percentage weightage that is going to other KPIs of human resources leaders. So yes, it is, in fact, the most heavyweight, demand from HR leaders to be very specific on financial KPIs that is expected by most organizations in
So I
current
think
times.
we don't have to introduce the next topic. We are already hearing words like the weightage in the KPIs. We are hearing words like ROI. So if there is an ELM today, it has to be data driven, isn't it? And that brings us to our next topic, which is the data driven employee lifecycle management. The earlier slide. Yes. So why there is a data-driven ELM? Uh, ELM is Employee Lifecycle Management. I think the first reason that comes to my mind is there is a greater need for visibility of what is happening with our employees, how they are performing, where they are headed, how much they are contributing. Uh, there is a need for continuously visualizing their KPIs. The second thing is a measurability. Uh, what we were hearing from Rajshri and Sandeep, that there cannot be an ELM practice or an HR practice where there is no measurability of the whole thing. And the third, which is added through analytics, is a predictability. So, what is going to happen in the next, not only in terms of attrition, but can we predict how is an employee going to perform in the next 3 years, so that we can plan the training, the development accordingly. And that is one of the key things. The second that I feel is there needs to be a segmented approach. And as I was telling that within the generation Y and the millennials, there are so many different kind of groups that are existing, that a single policy of training, development, or retention effort will not be sufficient. So we'll have to identify the behavioral aspects of different group of employees, and play the whole employee lifecycle management game as per that. And the third definitely is understanding the value of the employee. And all three taken together, the only support we have got is data, data, and data. The more we know about the employees, the more we can relate employees to the business. I think there would be a better ELM practice. Again, I would like to know from Rajshri, that whether my observations are in line with what you are observing in the organizations. Do you find any differentiation among the set of employees that you're working with, even at the same level or within the department? And how will data help this?
Um, Abhijit, currently we are in the budgeting phase for next year. I mean, most of the organizations are getting ready for their 2021 budget forecasting cycle. And very clearly, I have reached to a stage that I am questioning each and every role in the organization, which is, and that is only clear and thorough through analytics, through evaluation. And the reason why I say what I say is because only through data and analysis you are able to identify if there are anything uh, called as role overlaps, if there are anything called as a duplication of tasks performed by uh, two or three different functions sitting in three different departments but doing the same job, just holding different job titles. So, the question why only becomes powerful or is appropriate when you try and challenge the business stakeholders with data. So this cannot be explained beyond what I've said in any simpler terms, which is very very clear that when you have or when you wear these specs of analytics and you're trying to see the entire organization structure, including the cost and the levels, from a very bird's eye view, you are in a position to ask every department as to why, what, and how. So, that is where the beauty of data and analytics stands. So, if nobody is able to justify and just add on to as to X, Y, and Z reasons, even as relievers, if somebody says that there is an overlap, but somebody will go on a vacation and all, you are still in a position to challenge the department heads. And that is the beauty of data. So absolutely yes, in today's time this is where we stand. It's beautiful what data does for any of the HR professional. We actually sit in a position, very powerful role that we are playing now, and analytics is where the game is. So yes. That is where the relevance come from.
The best part about data and analytics is that there is a misconception that high-end statistics or predictive modeling is only analytics. Analytics begins with simple cross tabulation, simple graphs to identify and measure the KPIs. What is more important than the data is that we have a, a mindset of measuring everything. Uh, in earlier times, we used to see that the maximum number of initiatives that the HR would take in a year would be around team building exercises, around motivation sessions. Today, these are important, but the management needs us to justify if we are doing such a course, and the management needs an answerability that if we are spending money on them, how is it benefiting the organization? More than anything else, for my own KPI management, it is much better that if I can track my KPIs on an ongoing basis. If it is less ambiguous, it is more easy to rationalize them from the HR's point of view and to accept them from an employee's point of view. There was a practice in companies like Unilever and Procter and Gamble that if you walk into the HR department, they will be able to show you a graph that where are you now, where are you headed, where the organization wants you to be, and then you can manage your KPIs accordingly. So that kind of change is necessary from the mindset point of view of the HR, that you bring measurability to every part of it. Now, why I am including data-driven ELM in the whole CHPA course is one of the reasons is that you cannot shy away from this. Every department in the organization relies on data. HR cannot stay away from it. First thing, they need to have an integrated approach. For an integrated approach, they need data. The second reason is if you sit down at the beginning of the year that you are doing right now, you will see that there are at least 300 odd initiatives that you identify at the beginning of the year. Now, when you have 300 initiatives that are necessary, you still need to prioritize them. And that prioritization, there are only two ways of prioritizing. One is lobbying. So whoever is powerful in the organization will drive through their own set of initiatives that they plan, or it is justified by data. And as an HR, one needs you to be impartial to all the departments. If you have data to support it, it is to your benefit that you'll be able to justify your actions or rationalize your actions in front of other departments and the top management. So that is the whole point about data-driven EML. The second one I wanted to lay importance was on the segmented approach. Now, what I mean by segmented approach here is we have often heard this word called segmentation in relation to the customers we have. So there are customers who are very similar in nature, but behaviorally they are very, very different. I don't think it is very different for the employees. Even when I'm taking, say, a group of employees who are in between the age of 25 to 35, I'm quite sure that we have realized that there are pockets of employees who react to situations very differently, where the motivation to work is very different, where the ambitions are very different. Are we supposed to treat all of them in a similar manner? Or is it possible to have a segmented approach where we know that there are 4 key segments or 5 key segments, and whenever we're designing a program or a training program or a retention strategy, it will be quite different for different groups that we have identified. Is it the case? I'm opening to Sandeep and Rashi because you have been interacting with employees off and on.
Okay, let me pitch in here. Before segmenting your approach, I would like to go a step backward. And if I'm wearing the head of HR for any XYZ organization, I would like to see the business priorities for my organization this year. And likewise, like many organizations, the business priorities would have been different last year when they did the budgeting. And suddenly, due to the COVID, the business priority must have changed significantly. And since the business priorities have changed, the HR initiatives also needs to be changed. The alignment needs to be changed again. So apart from segmenting your approach for different part of employee life cycle, I would like to go and recommend HR to spend more and more time at the shop floor. More and more time with the businesses, attend the businesses. More and more time spending time with the finance function, operation functions, marketing functions, and understand that, have a grip on the business. And once you have a grip on the business, and you will obviously know that what are your business priorities, and when you lay down your business priorities on the table and when you dissect it open, and then you will know that which all areas are there which needs to be prioritized at priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, and priority 4, which I as a HR head would have been thinking without understanding the business realities and the issues and the challenges which my business is going, or my organization is going. My priorities would have been for the learning and development. Whereas when I sit on the table with my sales, with my operation, and I realize that my priority right now is to ensure that the collection, because it is hitting my P&L account directly. So my priority is not to have, train people on the future skills, but my priority is to give my operation and the sales team to give those amenities, facilities, and a platform which will help them to ensure that the collection is done, or to engage, some third-party litigation or the legal part, which will help them, enable them to facilitate their collection. So the priority might change. If the priority changes, then it is easy for me to segment. And when I can segment that, and then I can further prioritize on my the thrust areas, and then I can start the initiatives. Gone are the days of the traditional HR where you used to sit down all across the table and say that this is employee life cycle, and then I need to prioritize here. Today is a time of situational decision making. It's not a VUCA world; it's a ruptured world. And now it is, as you navigate, you have to take a decision, and the priority has to change. And at times, what happens during this, when you do it, there's a huge, I will say, fear among the employees. That the management is taking a decision now, something different, and suddenly next quarter is the priorities have become different. Fourth quarter priority is different. Where I will be. That is where the role of my second priority will be, to ensure that the communication channels are open, and my another team, which is employee engagement team, that does the work to ensure and engage people, that to make them understand that these are the business priorities, and we need all hands there. So these days it has to be based on business priorities rather than creating a specific kind of a projected approach for the HR initiatives.
I remember once doing a segmentation for one of the firms, and we got some interesting categories like stability seekers or lazy professors, and it was interesting because stability seekers, when we mapped them to their performance, we actually got a segment which can form the next management layer for our company. In terms of continuity planning or the defining the next 3 years, 4 years, these people played a crucial role. And rather than actually luring them with extraordinary salary hikes, we actually nurtured them for the next roles that they were playing. And then there were a set of lazy professors who were very, very good at their work, but you will never see them taking initiatives. So if you assign a work to them, they're happy to do it. They will probably do it better than the rest of the people. And it was a challenge for us to manage these people because they were so lazy that they would hardly take initiative to apply for jobs also. So, and we were in a dilemma that by performance, they were not ready for the next role in terms of because they were not taking initiatives. But when you talk about the quality of work within a group, they were excellent. And we actually created a mentorship program where these people were made mentors for their peers. And they were quite happy because that is what they liked. They liked what they were doing, but they were not ambitious enough to take on more responsibility. So this is how I'm telling that there are so many clues spread around in the organization. Your absenteeism rate, your participation in organization function, your mailing behavior, your communication behavior. If we can quantify them, you can make much more fruitful strategies around them. But one thing remains again very, very pertinent, that yesterday we were not worried about what is the value of employee brings into the company. Today it is extremely important for us that what is the value that the employees bringing in. There is no doubt that we need data-driven ELM, but I thought that in this session we might spend some time in discussing what is employee value management. And when I say employee value management, I'm not talking about the value that the employee gets out of the company, but I'm talking about the other way around. What is the value that the company is expecting to get out of the employee? Because that is the whole purpose. And that is why I brought in this graph, which typically shows that from a start date, on the horizontal axis it is the timeline, and on the vertical axis there's a value. So you can see that when an employee starts his journey in the organization, he the organization is spending money to get him started, so he's on a negative value, and then as he grows he gets into the positive zone, and then finally he decides to leave in his last day. And we have to manage this cycle. The whole purpose of value driven employee management is to maximize the part of white which is on top of the horizontal line, and if you can reduce the part which is below the horizontal line. It's a chicken and egg game, that whether you bring in experienced employees and you minimize the start fully onboarding process, or you start from the scratch, from the freshers, and you spend your time and effort to build him up. Again, I will open it to the forum, that what is the typical kind of challenges that you face in creating a value based employee management program. Is it the calculation, is it the data? And then we can have a discussion, weave a discussion around that. Yes, Ashley.
May I request you to show the graph again, please? It is interesting, yes, absolutely. So, what one thing as a target value add on this slide, which I regularly face, and I'm sure most of the HR leaders face, is what happens when an employee reaches its absolute glass ceiling in an organization, where the department head in any of the given functions understands that this individual A, like you said, is not ambitious enough to climb the ladder furthermore, or B is lack of competency to climb the ladder furthermore and take on a leadership level, etc., and reaches that glass ceiling and stays in the organization for a longer run. And then the cycle starts getting reversed, where I'm speaking from employer's point of view in terms of measuring the value or return on investment on such individual who stay in the organization quite longer, give the tenure to the company, let's say crossing 5 up to 10 or 12 years of stay period, and then become stagnant. Like what I said, is reaching to a glass ceiling where there A is no self motivation to climb up the ladder, and B, the organization doesn't see this individual to move up the ladder any longer. And then he or she starts becoming the liability more than an asset to the company. Although the knowledge gain or the extensive know-how of the business is very high with such employees. However, they start turning out to be in the reverse cycle, start fitting into a reverse cycle where there is no longer any value addition from this individual, and it's just there has just grown up with salary increments, but nothing beyond that. And there also reach a point where HR leaders have to start identifying such gray scales in each of the employee database, who reach to such glass ceiling, and then there is nothing that can be done. But human resource leaders are aware that if they bring in fresh talent instead, would come in a rather lower cost as a resource, would be much more motivated to bring onto table and add value and the productivity that is required for the business and to match up the pace of the organization. So here's where the bigger challenge come during this entire life cycle management scale.
So you can understand that the concept of employee lifecycle management has been taken from customer lifecycle management. And the challenges that we face in customer lifecycle management is that for a customer, it is easier to calculate the revenue it brings into the company, but it is extremely difficult to allocate costs. So I don't know that if I'm calculating per customer value, then what is the overhead portion that I attribute to the customer? How do I distribute the cost? So there is a whole exercise of identifying the cost elements and allocating it to the customer. In employee lifecycle management, it is just the reverse. So you can understand the sales team is the easiest to calculate what is the value the sales team brings in. But the complication is that if a sales guy makes a sales of say $100, all of that $100 is not a contribution from him. There is a contribution from every department possible. There is a contribution from marketing, which is a much more straightforward contribution. But then there is a contribution from IT. There is a contribution from HR, so as to say, quality department. So the challenge in the value-driven employee management is to first figure out a way of calculating the value of the employee. And especially if the employee is not a sales employee. So how do you divide the sales among various departments is the first challenge. Now, I cannot provide a solution because every organization will have a different solution for this, as is the case with customer life cycle, customer value. So there is no one rule that applies to every organization for calculating their customer value. Now, the second thing is we must realize that if everybody is ambitious and a star in an organization, it doesn't augur well for the organization because it comes at a cost of stability. So if I say that there is a group of people who are growing with the organization, they are not very ambitious enough, it would be too premature to say that they become a liability to the organization, because that is the group which brings in the stability within the organization, and there lies the challenge that how do you utilize them. So do you promote somebody who is likely to leave after achieving that objective, because they are constantly changing their objective in life, or I should promote somebody who is more stable in nature. Again, the worst part of the real world is there is no one side of the boat which is good. So you have to have a right balance, and that right balance will come from the data driven strategy building. So if we can understand and calculate the risk involved, we can calculate the value that brings in and the cost involved. And as you can understand now, that the cost is not a direct cost I'm talking about. So even for an ambitious employee, the cost of leaving the organization, cost of maintaining the continuity of the organization, the cost of recruiting a replacement and training him will all get added to his portfolio. And unless and until we segment the employees in terms of their behavior, it is very difficult to correctly allocate the costs. So the more we get into it, the more deeper we get into it, the more complicated it becomes. And that is why employee value management is not a single day process. So there are stages. Stage one, you take the direct costs and direct value and calculate it. Stage two, you add more complication, and as you get into the habit of data driven decision making over the period of years, you will have a more refined approach to the value management part of it. And obviously somebody who has been spending and investing money on developing a value based employee management program for the last 10 years, they're at a much advanced stage than somebody who is entering now. But then there has to be an entry point somewhere. So that is the reason value-based employee management is extremely important. And the slide clearly shows that what will be the objective. The objective will be, one, at an organization level, how do I maximize the part which is above the horizontal line? How do I minimize the part which is below the horizontal line? And still maintain a balance with all the other factors which are necessary for an organization. So this will be the whole basis of employee value management. And this will be a core part within the CHPA program also. So you can understand that when you're coming in to do a CHPA program, there will be data scientists who will be helping you with the numbers, statistics, etc. But the conceptualization of how do you calculate value is something you cannot expect from a data scientist. They can refine your ideas, but it is the strategy guys and the planning guys who have to sit and get deeper into the whole questions of the uncomfortable parts of it. That, okay, can we bring out a methodology of dividing the revenues among the different departments? There will be a fight, there will be arguments, but then that is how a framework is developed. So that development of the framework of building a cost-based approach or a value-based approach lies with the CHPs, in collaboration with finance team, CEO's team, the strategy team, the different departments. And there, how you create a methodology. We will be discussing few of the white papers that have been written across the world, a few of the methodologies that have been used elsewhere. And again, I don't have the nature of telling you that this is the right approach. There is nothing called a right approach in management. There will never be a right approach to management. There can only be directions, and I will try and see if each one of you gets some kind of direction towards building a value-based employee management program. Now, I think we have just enough time left to get into the last section, which is, what is the relevance of employee lifecycle management in a program like CHPA. So if you can go to the last slide. So there are three basic things that we are addressing in a CHPA program. The first, we are trying to understand the strategic alliance between the organization strategy and the employee management. So earlier, the first part was not laid stressed upon. Today in CHPA, we are trying to marry the organization strategy with the employee management strategy. So that is the first objective that we will be solving. The second objective will be, as a CHPA, it will be your responsibility to conceive, design, implement, and measure simultaneous initiatives across the employee lifecycle stages. So within the attraction part, you will have multiple strategies. One, how do you attract the parallel recruitments? How do you attract the new recruitments? How do you attract the the right kind of talent for the strategic jobs? How do you attract the right kind of talent for the operational jobs? So there has to be a multiple layered approach in the attraction part. Similarly, there will be a multiple layered approach in the recruitment part, management part, attrition part, etc. So there will be hundreds of initiatives that you can design, and the responsibility lies with the CHPAs to prioritize them and implement them. Now, these initiatives will not be implemented as it is. So once you have identified the initiatives, then you will have to turn them into campaigns, and that process will start from to design the initiatives. What kind of data do you require? How do you manage that data? What kind of analysis do you do? What kind of insights do you generate? And from how do you convert those insights into initiatives and campaigns? And how do you negotiate, collaborate with various departments, various employees to roll them out as initiatives? And as you can understand that HR is the only department which will not work in silo at any point of time. So they have their customers across the organization. All their initiatives involve multiple departments and multiple layers in the organization. And a CHPA's responsibility will be to manage the whole cycle. So this is what we will be covering in the employee lifecycle management. Uh, the first part would be how do we define the role of the CHP in the employee lifecycle management? How do we bring in the concept of value-based employee lifecycle management, which is basically uh, before getting into the mathematical part of it, how do you build frameworks for creating a value, and how do you build a roadmap towards that? And the third is what are the other functions that you need to handle in order to complete the role of the CHP? So sometimes you will don the hat of data management people, sometimes you will be the strategy guy, sometimes you will be the implementation guy. And especially for people who are at a senior level, they will be guiding the team for each one of these functions. So this is how the concept of ELM becomes the core concept of the CHPA's course, and that is what we will be working towards. And I now leave it open to both Sandeep and Rajshri to chip in, pluses and minuses of this initiative and what can be improved upon that.
Abhijit, I have seen the content of the course, and this is quite a revolutionary course in the content part of it, because you have a standalone analytics programs which is going on, and these analytics programs sometimes push you to become a data scientist. Okay, expect you to become a data scientist, or give you some skill set for you to have those skills to be aware of analytics. But this course is something very unique, because here this has been the HR strategy being used, the business strategy being used. There is a good amount of assimilation of both the strategy, and the basis of this strategy forms the analytics part of it. And then analytics supports the strategy, and it helps measuring the impact of the HR initiatives on the business. And there are live cases, and I've seen those cases, which are quite hands-on, and it is like dissecting your it's like open heart surgery. You are doing it live on the table. You've got the case, you've got a scenario, you've got the tool, you've got a methodology, and then you need to apply them. When you apply them, you can see the result. What is it going towards the positive side of it or the negative side of it? Is it creating the impact, positive impact or negative impact? And apart from this, there's a huge amount of lesson learns are there, which you can use those skill sets to become or make your skills as a HR analytics better. And I know there is one module is there where you have explained about the machine learning part of it, which is quite unique, not seen in many of the HR analytics courses, where apart from your analytics, your statistics, and your complete storytelling, storyboarding, and then machine learning coming as a part of an empowering HR. And then if somebody wants to go further, he can go for a deep learning and then go and graduate to the next AI part of it. So I feel that this is quite a comprehensive program, and it gives the skill set to HR to become the next generation HR leader.
Absolutely. If not anything else, definitely the attendees would be in a position to evaluate the ELM softwares being sold in the market, because they come with an approach that they can provide every solution. I think it is true to some extent, because most of these software companies have mastered the visibility part of it. So you will definitely get complete visibility of most of the KPIs, but it is for you to choose which is the right KPI for you. If you depend on the software providers to tell you what is your right KPIs, then I would rather say they manage the HR function rather than you. So you should be the one deciding what are the right KPIs. Most of them have inbuilt capabilities of configuring their solution on for that. Rashri, any uh, last words from your side before we uh, start wrapping up? Rashri, you're
And
muted.
Mike. Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. Uh, Again, when I am, I'm actually doing this course and program with Abhijit, I am so solid and firm. The more I get, in depth learning about this program, the more I go back to the years of my master's in personal management and industrial psychology. I'm completely aware that this program is to encompass certain professional experience level to be crossed in an individual's career. However, I still I'm of the opinion that I wish I had all of these tools and techniques available to me while I was doing my masters. Before or while entering the corporate world, if you're ready and you're mentally prepped, that this is one of the most important tool. Like if I have to go back to any of the subject knowledge or acads, I know very well that this course is the ultimate program that gives the right experiential learning for you to implement in your actual real-time corporate jobs. Irrespective of all the theories that we've learned, we speak of David Ulrich, we speak of Hayes methodology, we speak of McKinsey's, we speak of all such models. But if we do not have the competency to up our career or our own skill sets in terms of developing our analytical skills, then we still may lag behind the competition and in today's era. So yeah, ultimate course and ultimate program, and I am looking forward for further more classes, Abhijit. And let's roll this on.
Thank you so much, Rashri. So the next session, Sandeep, we will be doing on the final part of it. I have always been maintaining that CHPA is not creating data scientists. CHPA is not creating data scientists. Very, very true. But then you will be managing the data scientists. So next session, that is the last of the Game Changer series, will be around machine learning in a CHPA program or uh, in HR strategy and planning. The and that will be interesting from a point of view that we will try to explore why machine learning is needed for a CHPA, how it goes on in helping him explore those areas which he has not thought about earlier. It breaks the wall for the unknown. So once we understand that what are the possibilities in machine learning, you will be exploring areas of HR which you thought could never be explored because it is not possible. And that is the beauty of data and data science, that it brings on your table such possibilities that earlier we could have only imagined of. And next session we will see that how have we woven machine learning within the CHPA program, which will help you in a practical HR professional life. Yes, Sandeep.
Thanks, Abhijit. And with this, we come to the end of today's live wire talk, brought to you by Boston International Institute of Certification and Assessments. Next session will be on machine learning, which is announced by Abhijit. And this is the first time that machine learning is getting injected in a HR analytics course. Just to remind you, this certification program is accredited from the KHDA government of UAE, and this brings to you certification from HRCI with 65 course credits. That means after doing this certification program, you don't have to go for any other examination, so you can recertify for the next 3 years. Thank you again, Abhijit, Rajshri, and we look forward for our next session, which is a last session for CHPA. Thank you so much.